Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's lesson. If this is your first time here at Interactive English, the channel is just all about trying to help you guys practice and improve your English skills. And please, especially if this is your first time, write your name in the comments, say hello, tell me where you're from. We love hearing from different people. And even if this is your first time and you are with us live in the chat, write your name, tell me where you're from. Always love meeting new people. So today's lesson is, I really like today's lesson. It's going to be all about puns. So puns, I say I enjoy today's lesson, not only because I think it's a little funnier, it's because I like lessons where I learn new things. So even though I am an English teacher, I am constantly learning new things about the English language. And doing a topic like this and talking about puns, I learn some new things and I love doing that. And then I can just go ahead and share it with all of you. So I just want to give a quick shout out and say hello to Lali, Dev, Daniel, Ibrahim, Nisha, Hani. Hello, Sumaya, Louisa, Aiden, how are you guys? Thank you guys for joining me today. And this lesson, I can tell you, well, if you don't know what a pun is, I'll just go ahead and tell you and give you the meaning. So a pun is a humorous use of a word or phrase that has several meanings or that sounds like another word. And often you would use a pun when you're telling a joke. Many jokes would have a pun, which is why they're funny, and we're going to look at some of those today. Or people may just use puns when in everyday conversation. Sometimes it may be intentional, and they try to use a pun in order to be funny. And other times it's just on accident, and they didn't really mean to do it, but because of the situation they used a pun. So puns are meant to be funny, and I can say that this lesson, all right, this lesson is going to be punny. All right, I apologize. That's just a terrible joke. But it is an example that I wanted to give you. Instead of punny, it sounds a little like funny. So this is somewhat of a pun. It's more of a play on words because this is something else you hear when talking about puns. And it's a play on words or wordplay, which is when you're using words in a very creative and imaginative way in order to be funny. So I apologize, that's a very bad joke, but I want to get into telling you, well, why am I doing this? So there is a book, in case any of you are out there looking for new books to read, especially if you love to read in English, which is something that I highly recommend. This is a book that I have taught English learners before. It's called The Phantom Tollbooth. And the reason why this book, it made me think about doing a lesson like this is because when I've taught this book to other English learners, it's pretty challenging. And the reason why it's very difficult is because this book has so many different puns and wordplay. And sometimes as a person trying to learn another language, it can be very difficult to identify that and try to understand, well, why this might be funny. So if you really want to challenge yourself, if you are interested in really challenge yourself in a way to see if you can identify some of these puns and understand what they mean and why it's funny, I recommend this book. All right, excellent, awesome, thank you, Rod, for joining the team. Excellent. The other thing I wanted to point out, just to give you an example in this book, look at the dog. It's a watchdog. And that word has two different meanings in English. So a watchdog in English is a dog that you may see that is protecting somebody's home or it's protecting their property. It's called a watchdog. Now, it has another meaning. A watchdog is also an organization or could be a person that watches over another group to make sure that they are doing what they should be doing, to make sure that they're doing their work, that, okay, you're doing what they should be doing. This person or a group is considered a watchdog. Now, in the story, That is the dog's job. His job, he's watching over this other group of people and making sure that they are doing their work and they are doing what they should be doing. So he is a watchdog, his job, but he is also he's also a dog that has a clock on him, a watchdog. So it has double meanings like that. But that's what made me think of doing this lesson. So let's go ahead and talk about some different types of puns. Now, this is where I say I enjoy learning about this topic because I learn new things. Because you don't need to learn the different types of puns. The reason why I'm showing it to you is that I hope that it helps you understand the puns a little bit easier. And it helps you understand, well, why this is funny and why is this a play on words. So these are not terms like, I did not know this before, that there was such as a homophonic pun. But it is a type of pun, and what this type of pun is, it uses homonyms, which are words that sound the same, but they have different meanings. So these are words that sound the same, but they have different meanings. It is a type of pun. Let me give you an example. So the first one, it says, frog parking only, all others will be towed. So I will ask all of you right now, which word do you see that is a homonym? All right? Which of these words is a homonym? And I use this one because I saw it was funny. But this is a good example of a homonymic poem, homonymic pun, in which it's using a homonym in order to be funny and entertaining. It's humorous, all right? Frog parking only, all others will be towed. Now, the homonym that you see in there is the word toad. So if you're thinking about parking, instead of saying like toad, it would really be towed. I'm writing it in there. And to tow somebody is to, well, you take their car and you move it to another place, to tow someone's car. So in this case, instead of saying toad, like you're moving a car, it's talking about a toad, which is a type of frog. It's those big frogs, that is a toad. So this is a good example of a homonymic poem where you use a pun in which you're using a homonym. And I thought it was kind of funny, entertaining. The next type of pun is a homographic pun. Now, this is a pun that uses words that are spelled the same but sound different. Okay, a homographic pun. The words are spelled the same, but they sound different, all right? So let me give you an example of a homographic pun. And I want you to see if you can identify the word that I'm talking about, which makes this a homographic pun, all right? I'm not gonna read it because I don't want to give it away. I want you to read this, and which word makes this a homographic pun in which the word has two different pronunciations, that you can pronounce this word two different ways depending on what you're trying to say. All right? And that's what makes this funny. This is a quote. It was the name, I think, of an album by REO Speedwagon back in the late 70s. But I think this may be taken from a quote from a book by Douglas Adams, who was a famous author. He wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Great book, great movie. But I think that is where this comes from. Now, wait, some of you saying tune. All right. You guys are kind of right. What makes this, we're going to come back to this pun too. What makes this a homographic pun is not actually tune and tuna, it's bass. So look at that last word, all right? You can tune a fish, but you can't you can tune a guitar, but you can't tune a fish unless you play, it could either be bass or bass. So unless you play bass, bass is a type of fish, all right? That's a picture of a bass right there. It's a big fish, but it's a type of fish unless you play bass. But it's a homographic pun because you can also pronounce that word. It has the same spelling as bass. All right, bass is it's a type of guitar, the bass guitar. So you can see in this picture, I have a picture of a bass, and the bass is playing the bass. Okay, so a bass is a type of fish. A bass, the same spelling, is a type of guitar. So that's what makes it a homographic pun. The first part, tune a guitar, or tune a fish. Remember, those are, that is the same pronunciation, actually. So we're talking about a word that's spelled the same, but has a different pronunciation. This is a tricky one. It is a tricky one, Henry, yes. So I told you we're going to come back to this in just a moment, and I'll explain it a little more in just a second. So let me talk about the next kind of pun that you have. Is this one. Is a homonymic pun. Now, again, these are words that I had no idea that a homonymic pun existed. But hopefully it'll help you understand it a little bit more when I show you the example. So this involves a word that is spelled and sounds the same, but has a different meaning. All right? So it involves a word that is spelled and sounds the same, it has a different meaning. So, and I would say it involves a word that it doesn't have to be the exact spelling or, well, let me show you the example. And this will help me. So a homonymic pun. And, okay. Homonymic pun, words that sound the same, spelled and sound the same, but has a different meaning, okay? So here is like a little comic, and you see that those, in case you don't know, those are bullets. And it's like you have a little family of bullets, and the person's asking, what happened to you? And this other bullet over here came home, and he says, I got fired. So in this case, the word fired, that is what makes this a homonymic pun. It's spelled the same, has the same pronunciation, but you have these different meanings, okay? So he got fired, like, in this case, it's like you get fired from your job, but also if a bullet, you're talking about you fire a bullet with a gun. So the job of a bullet is, well, typically, if you get fired, the job is over. So the bullet is saying, I got fired, and he lost his job in that case, all right? So that's an example of a homonymic pun, and I thought that was funny. So fired is the key word there. The next type of pun is a compound pun, and this is a pun that contains more than one pun. And this is when I said I'm going to go back to this example because you could say you can tune a guitar, but you can't tune a fish. That is also a pun. That is a homographic pun like the first one we did because we're talking about tune something. To tune a guitar is to tune it to make sure it sounds right, that the guitar is tuned. And tune a fish, it is something that, well, tuna is a type of fish. But if you talk about tuna fish, it's typically, it's a meal, it's food, it's something you eat. So you can tune a guitar, but you can't tune a fish. That would be a homophonic pun, all right? It sounds the same, but these are different words. Unless you play bass or bass, that is the homographic pun. So because you have two puns in here, you could also say it's a compound pun. You're using more than one pun. So that is an example of a compound pun. Let me let's do this one, a recursive pun. So this is another type of pun. It requires understanding the first half of the joke in order to understand the second half of the joke. I'll give you an example, and hopefully this makes sense, that a recursive pun, you need to have, it's almost like you need to understand something in the beginning in order to understand why something else is funny. So, for example, this is a good example. So May 4th, the date, is considered International Star Wars Day. I didn't know that until I looked that up yesterday. So May 4th is the date that's considered International Star Wars Day. And this is a popular, this is like a slogan that they would say, May the 4th be with you. All right? Now, if you have not seen the movie Star Wars, this may not be that funny. But if you have seen the movie and you understand that first part of the joke, then somebody might say this and it's funny, it's entertaining, because instead of saying, may the fourth be with you in the movie, yes, Onasim says, Mamiya, yes. Instead of fourth in the movie, they say force. All throughout Star Wars, all of those, they say this throughout, I'm writing it, may the force be with you, all right? So force sounds a lot like fourth, which is why this is funny. But if somebody has not seen the movie, this is not going to make that much sense, and you may not think this is funny. So this is an example of a recursive pun that in order to understand why this is funny, you need to understand the first part of the joke to begin with. All right, so this is another type of pun. Now, like I told you, you don't need to understand, oh, well, what is a recursive pun? What's a homographic pun? The reason why I'm showing you that is that hopefully it helped you understand those jokes a little better. Because puns are typically something you see in writing. I think it's common. So let's look at some more examples. But first, I did want to talk about some expressions using the word pun. So I think a more common one, somebody might say, no pun intended. And when somebody says no pun intended, it means that they're going to use a pun, but they didn't mean to. They didn't really want to, but they are using one anyway. So somebody could say no pun intended, or they might say pardon the pun. Both of them have the same meaning, that you're using a pun because of some situation, but it's not because you wanted to. It's because you could. And I'll give you an example. More commonly, I think you might hear people say no pun intended. And they would typically say that at the beginning, or actually, they would typically say that at the end. So after they say the pun, then they might say, look, no pun intended. So let me show you another example. This is a conversation. I came up with this yesterday. Maybe it's a bad example, but hopefully it makes sense. So here, the first part would be that you have a father and a son, and the son is saying to the father, he says, hey, Dad, my friends and I are going camping in the graveyard. I don't know why they would want to go camping in the graveyard, but this is what the boy is telling his father. We're going camping in the graveyard. And the father says, over my dead body. No pun intended. All right. Now, over my dead body, this is an idiom which somebody could use that means that you are completely against something. If you're saying, no, you are absolutely not going to do this over my dead body. So I'm going to go ahead and write that in case you did not know the meaning of that idiom. Over one's dead body is used to say that someone is completely, and I'd emphasize completely against something. So in this case, the father is saying, look, you are not going camping. Over my dead body, no pun intended. So the reason why that's a pun is because, again, a graveyard would be full of dead bodies. So this would be this would be an example of a way in which somebody could use that expression, no pun intended, where you're having a conversation, you use a pun, but maybe you don't mean to, and you could tell that, look, no pun intended, but you're going to use it. So hopefully, again, that makes sense in this situation. So let's go ahead now, and I want to show you just some different puns, just because I think they're humorous, they're funny, and try to identify why you think, again, this is funny. So I like this one. And I got some of these from a website, which I will link down in the description below. And the website just lists, I think it was like 80 of the funniest puns. And this is good reading practice to go through and read and see if you can identify what the joke is. So this says, light travels faster than sound. That's why some people appear bright until you hear them speak. All right? Now, the reason why this is funny is because of the word bright. It has two different meanings. Bright could be talking about light, or bright could be talking about a person's intelligence. If I say, oh, you guys, you're very bright, it means you're very smart. So in this case, it's saying light travels faster than sound. because some people may look bright, maybe they look like they're very smart, and then you hear them speak, and then you think, oh, okay, maybe this person is not very intelligent, all right? So light travels faster than sound. That's why some people appear bright until you hear them speak, all right? The next one that I want to look at is this one, because you might find puns in newspapers. These are actually real newspaper articles. They were in the cover of newspapers, and they use puns. They may use them to be entertaining, mostly I think to emphasize that something happened. So look at the first one. This is a picture of Luis Suarez, who is a football player from Uruguay. Now, if you don't follow football, you may not get this, but on several years ago, I don't know if it was during the World Cup, Suarez, this footballer, he has a problem. He has a problem because during some of the football matches, he tends to bite people. And he has bitten several other people on the other teams, and it's very strange. It's very weird. It's not good. But after this happened, this article came out and said it had to be chew. And instead of saying it had to be you, which is a famous song by Frank Sinatra, and I think other people have done follow-ups to that song, they changed you to chew because they sound a little similar, and he's talking about him chewing on another person. It had to be chew. The other one is talking about utter devastation. So in this case, the word, if you're talking about devastation, a common collocation, somebody could say that there was utter devastation, all right? This is a common collocation that these words are frequently used together. If you want to say that there was devastation, you could really say that there was a lot and say, oh, there was utter devastation. But instead of saying utter, they're using the word otter. And they're probably using that word, I'm just guessing, I have not read the article, is because there were otters that were causing a lot of problems, that were destroying things. The otters were causing the devastation, so that is why they chose this title for the article. There's otter devastation, which is funny because they're saying, instead of saying utter devastation, otter devastation. So puns are something that you find in not just jokes that friends might say, but you may see it on the cover of a newspaper or on the cover of a magazine. So let's look at this next one. This is another good one. I thought it was funny. I don't know why. So this is, you have a lighter, which is meeting a highlighter, and the lighter says highlighter, which a highlighter is a type of like marker that you use to highlight some information. People might use them to highlight, well, students might use them to highlight important information in books. You have that tool on the computer. You have a tool that says highlighter. You can highlight important information. So the lighter says highlighter, and then the highlighter says highlighter. All right, so they're saying the same things. It's a pun. It's funny. I don't know. I thought it was funny. The next one is this one. I thought this was good. I was wondering why the ball was getting bigger. Then it hit me. All right, what do you think? Why is this pun funny? Or why is this a pun? Why is it funny? Which phrase has two different meanings? What do you think? I was wondering. I was wondering why the ball was getting bigger, and then it hit me. All right. So the phrase in there that has two different meanings is then it hit me. So if you're thinking about what actually happened, all right, I was wondering why this ball was getting bigger, and then it hit me. So the ball is getting bigger because it's coming closer and closer and closer, and then it hits this person. It actually hits them maybe in the head. I don't know. But if you also say something like, oh, and then it hit me. Yes, excellent. I think you guys got it. So if you say something, oh, then it hit me, it means that you finally understood something, all right? So I think one of the key words in there is wondering. If you're wondering something, you're like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Oh, and then it hit me. All right, so it finally means that you finally understood something, you realized some situation, and then you could say that. So in that case, then it hit me could mean like the ball actually hits this person, or it means like the person, they finally understand why the ball is getting bigger. So it works both ways in that case. So that is why this is a pun, and it's a funny one. Let's just do one more quick one. So this is another one that I think was taken out of a newspaper, and it's Ketchup talking to a hot dog. He says, "It was nice to meet you." And he says, "Yes, hope to see you soon so we can catch up." So again, this is an example of a homophonic pun because we're using words that sound the same, these homonyms. It was nice to meet you. Instead of meet is a homonym, because instead of saying meet, it has the same pronunciation as meet, to meet somebody, to greet them. It's nice to meet you. And again, hope to see you soon so we can catch up. So the catch up, the sound, which I think this one is a little easier to understand, to catch up. And if you don't know that phrase, to catch up with someone, it means that you want to get back together with a person so that you can talk and see what's going on in their lives. This is something that people say, I think quite often, like, oh, if you say goodbye to somebody, you say, oh yeah, let's catch up soon. Let's catch up real soon. Or like, when are we going to get together? We really need to catch up. It means that you need to meet and discuss what's happening in your lives. You want to catch up with someone. So that is a great phrasal verb to know, to catch up with someone. All right, so those are all different examples. We've talked about these different types of puns. And I told you, you don't necessarily need to learn, the different names, the types. Hopefully it helped you understand them a little bit better. But I want to thank you guys for joining me. And again, here we are. If you guys like what we do and you do want to sponsor and support Interactive English, you can get a membership on YouTube. Somebody got a membership today. It was Rod. Was it Rob or Rod? Excellent. Rod, yes. There's links in the description down below for either a membership on YouTube or Patreon. Links are in the description. There are some cool rewards. And we're always thinking of different ways to engage with our members. Maybe I've been doing some like sneak preview lessons, and I'm constantly trying to think of different ways to do that. So if you guys like that, you can check that out. Thank you guys for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. I will link down below in the description that link to that website if you'd like to read through some more puns. And it's good practice to see if you can identify them and why they're funny. Also, remember I showed you that book that I was talking about, this one, over here, The Phantom Tollbooth. It could be a little challenging, but if you're looking for something to read, it's a very, I don't want to say, it's not really a children's book, but maybe more for teenagers. But there's a lot of wordplay in this book, so it would be very challenging if you're looking for something to read. All right, so thank you guys. Give some shout outs. Thank you, Gertrudis, Orlando, Luna, Aiden, good to see you. Lolly, Martha, thank you guys for joining me today. Shawana, I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I hope you join me next weekend for another live lesson. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. So long.